Do you ever wonder why some places make your heart beat faster, even when nothing's there? Have you ever stood still, perfectly still, and yet felt like something beneath your feet was moving, like the ground itself was holding its breath? What if the earth remembered things we've forgotten? Not just fossils or ruins, but memories, frequencies, codes we were never meant to decode. Tonight I'll take you deeper, not just underground, but beneath the skin of the world. But I have to ask you one thing before we begin. If you found something older than history humming with a pulse that wasn't human, would you listen or would you run? Welcome back to Podpulse House. I'm glad you're here, because I need to tell you what happened after I opened that door. At first, I wasn't even sure the door had opened. The screech of rusted metal gave way to a silence so total it felt like sound had been drained from the air itself. And when I stepped in, it wasn't a room, it was a tunnel. Narrow, sloping, with walls that pulsed faintly like they were alive. I kept thinking it was just light tricks or fatigue, but then my compass spun wildly, and my phone battery drained in seconds. Every step deeper felt like I was walking further out of time. And then the smell hit. Ozone, iron, and something old like damp stone soaked in sorrow. Not rot, not death, but memory, and not mine. There were no markings, no cables, no modern signs of life. Just walls that curved unnaturally, as though made by something that didn't care for right angles or symmetry. But at about 20 steps in, the sound returned, not a hum this time, but a pulse, like a subsonic heartbeat. It vibrated through my ribs, matched the rhythm of my steps until I stopped, and it didn't. It kept going, a beat too slow to be human, a rhythm too precise to be random. That's when I realized something terrifying. The signal wasn't just coming from underground. It was alive. It was listening to me, tracking my movement, and, I swear this on every shred of logic I have, it adjusted its frequency the moment I turned my head. Like sonar. Like it was mapping me back. I should have turned around then. But I didn't. I told myself I had to know. And not just because of the signal, but because deep down I think I wanted it to be real. I wanted the impossible to exist. I think some of us chase the unknown because the world we were handed feels too shallow, too explainable, too cruel in its simplicity, and I needed it to be more. The corridor led to a chamber, round, almost spherical. And there, suspended in the center of the space, was what I can only describe as a device, not built, not engineered, but grown, a structure of bone-white tendrils, perfectly symmetrical, wrapped around a central core that pulsed like a sleeping heart. It didn't make sense, nothing made sense, but it was beautiful in a way that made my stomach twist, not because it was evil, but because it felt sacred, like I was trespassing on something holy, ancient, and utterly inhuman. And then I saw them, etched across the inner surface of the chamber. Patterns, carvings, thousands of them. Not written language, not symbols I recognized, but more like audio frozen in stone. Imagine a wave file etched into the walls, frequencies encoded into rock. And in that moment, I knew the truth that shattered every safe thought I had. This wasn't made by us, and it wasn't left here for us. We'd just stumbled onto it. And now, it knew. I don't know how long I stood there, staring. The hum grew louder. The pulse sped up. My body felt heavier, like gravity had doubled. I could feel thoughts in my head that weren't mine. A voice? A suggestion? Maybe. But more than anything, I felt watched, not by something in the room, but by the structure itself, the device. It wasn't an artifact. It was a mind, dormant, listening, waiting. And that's when I made the biggest mistake of all. I reached out to touch it. There was no lightning, no sound, no warning, just sudden darkness, a black so deep it swallowed my vision. And then, I was somewhere else. I wasn't unconscious. I wasn't dreaming. I was standing in another version of that room, but it was alive, breathing. Walls expanding and contracting like lungs, the core in the center glowing blood red. And in that moment I saw everything. Memories, not mine, but from others. Civilizations older than our deepest fossils, lives that never walked upright, entire worlds that had risen and fallen under different skies. And then I saw something else, a tear, not metaphorical, a literal wound in space, something the device was holding shut, or trying to. And we humans, were the interference. We weren't meant to find it. We weren't part of the signal. We were noise. And just like that, I was back, on the ground outside the door, drenched in sweat, dirt under my nails. No tunnel behind me, just forest, silent, still. So here I am. And here's the question I need to ask you, because I can't unsee what I saw. What if the signal isn't a warning, but a lock? What if we've already started to open something that's been holding the worst of the universe in check? What happens when curiosity breaks the last seal? I don't have answers, not yet. But I have more recordings, more data, and more places to go. If you're still with me, then you're already part of this, and I promise you, I'll keep going. I didn't sleep the night I came back. I couldn't. My mind was a spool of static, a reel looping between two realities that shouldn't have overlapped. The device, the thing I touched, had imprinted something inside me, not thoughts, not visions, but a kind of pressure, like I'd become a vessel or an antenna. I kept feeling waves of something pass through my chest like ripples in water. It didn't hurt. It was worse than pain. It was purpose, something deep and wrong and urgent, like I was carrying a message I couldn't read but couldn't erase. Every light felt too bright. Every machine buzzed louder than it should. My phone wouldn't stay on. My clocks drifted. And I noticed my watch, digital atomic synced, was off by exactly 17 seconds. Constantly. It didn't matter how many times I reset it. 17 seconds lost, like part of me had stayed in that room, and time couldn't realign. What if the most terrifying thing isn't the monster in the dark, but the idea that you let it in, and now you're the only one who can hear it breathe? What if it didn't need to break into our world, because we opened the door ourselves, out of curiosity, out of desperation, or worse, because something inside us was always waiting for it? You've stayed with me this far. You heard the pulse. You remember the device, the signal, the missing tunnel, the shard that should not exist. I know you feel it too now, a faint echo behind your thoughts, like something has started listening back. Welcome back to Podpulse House. I'm still here, and I'm still unraveling what I began. Because once you touch the signal, you don't walk away whole. You carry. I used to think of time as a line, clean, logical, sequential. But now every hour feels like a ripple moving in reverse. Ever since I woke up clutching that shard, reality hasn't settled. Lights flicker in patterns I can't ignore. My clock still lags exactly 17 seconds. Reflections feel like they're watching back. And the sound, it's back. Low, vibrating beneath my perception like the walls around me are exhaling secrets in code. I've become attuned to it, unwillingly. I pick up frequencies others can't. Radios glitch when I walk past. Phones restart. Dogs stare. My own voice sounds off in recordings, like it's layered, like someone or something is speaking through me. I started mapping the sound again, feeding recordings through software meant to visualize soundscapes. The patterns that formed, they weren't random. They looked like schematics, not for machines, but for events. Echoes of something unfolding, or maybe unraveling. And the shard, it glows now, faintly. Only at night, only when I dream. I haven't told anyone. How could I? How do you explain to someone that a piece of metal no human has ever seen pulses like a living thing whenever you fall asleep? That it hums in harmony with a frequency no spectrum meter can register? You don't. You sit alone in the dark, hoping your bones stop vibrating long enough for one moment of silence. And when silence finally comes, that's when I know it's getting closer. Because it's not just dreams anymore. I've started losing time. Gaps, minutes. Once, an entire hour. I'll look at the clock, blink, and suddenly I've moved, across the room, sometimes into a new one. My body remembers, but my mind doesn't. I wake up with soil under my fingernails, mud on my boots, but I haven't left the apartment, not consciously. I set up cameras, motion detectors, but during those blackouts, everything malfunctions. Every single time. It's not sleepwalking, it's something else, like I'm being used, or borrowed. One night, during a particularly bad shift, I woke up on the roof, knees scraped, palms blistered, holding the shard again. Only now a new pattern had emerged on it, lines converging into a shape that looked like an eye, not a drawing, a geometry, a structure that suggested perception, awareness. What if one night you wake up and realize your memories are being edited? Not forgotten, not lost, but overwritten, like a hard drive with new data being written on top of old, and yet fragments of the original still bleed through in dreams, in smells, in the unshakable sensation that something's been rearranged inside your own head. What if the scariest thing isn't that something is coming, but that it's already here, quietly shifting the world while we sleep, and we're the last to know? That's what I woke up to, not an event, a realization, like waking in a house you don't remember building with walls made of memories that don't quite fit. I hadn't left the house in days. Time had started bending in ways I couldn't explain. Sometimes I'd blink and hours had passed. Sometimes I'd sit in silence for minutes and the clock wouldn't move at all. I'd listen back to my own recordings, only to find sections where my voice dropped out, or worse, where I was speaking words I didn't remember saying. I kept the shard close. I didn't want to. I needed to. Whenever it was near, the pulse returned, steady and low, like a metronome syncing me to something just beneath reality. And then the dreams began to change. They stopped being symbolic. They became instructional, like tutorials for a system I'd never signed into. I'd wake with diagrams in my mind, coordinates I didn't recognize, equations I've never studied but now seem to understand instinctively. And worse, images, flash frames of structures buried beneath ice, forests swallowed by fog, entire cities reduced to a single frequency. I couldn't explain it, not to anyone, not even to myself. So I started mapping it, sketching it. I taped pages to the walls of my study, drawing lines between the fragments of vision, trying to trace a pattern, and slowly one began to emerge. Not a map in the traditional sense, but a sequence, an order. Every vision, every pulse, every memory fragment aligned along a thread of events, past, present, future. Except the thread wasn't linear. It looped, it converged, like something was folding time in on itself and stitching points together from across the timeline. And I wasn't just witnessing it, I was inside. There was one image that kept repeating, a monolith, black, towering, covered in the same harmonic etchings as the shard. But in every dream it stood in a different place, one time in a desert, one time beneath the sea, once floating weightless above the clouds, and always, always humming, like it wasn't bound by location. Or maybe it wasn't in any one place at all. It was in all of them, simultaneously. I knew I had to find it. But how do you chase something that's outside of space? I stopped trusting mirrors. I don't know when it started, maybe the third night, but I'd glance into one and catch my reflection blinking out of sync, moving a second late, or smiling when I wasn't. It sounds insane. I know it does, but I recorded it once. I played it back, frame by frame. My reflection stood still when I walked away. It lingered for one frame longer than me, just one, but that's all it took to shatter any illusion of safety I had left. The emotional weight of it started to take its toll. I wasn't just afraid, I was grieving the version of me that existed before all this. The version that believed in straight timelines, in objective memory, in the safety of logic and science and gravity that always pointed downward. That version of me was gone. What replaced it was someone else, someone constantly scanning the silence for patterns, someone whose thoughts were no longer entirely their own. I started writing in symbols I didn't recognize, whole pages, feverish, automatic, like my hands were receiving dictation. And when I tried to translate them using basic frequency mapping, I discovered they matched the tonal recordings, the ones that made compasses spin and lights dim. Whatever was using me as a vessel, it was scaling up. Then came the day I woke up with dirt under my fingernails. No memory of leaving the house. No sign of a break-in, just soil on the floor and a trail of muddy footprints leading to my desk. And there, sitting perfectly aligned in the center, was a new shard. Smaller, colder, but humming with a deeper tone. Like a harmony. I didn't touch it. I couldn't, but I knew what it meant. This wasn't the end. This was a continuation, a layering, a system of beacons calling to one another, syncing across time, awakening something buried deep, not just in the earth, but in us. And maybe that's the most terrifying realization of all, that whatever this is, whatever force or intelligence or code I've stumbled into, it's not entirely foreign. It speaks to something ancient inside us, something that remembers, something that recognizes the pulse. What if we're not discovering an alien language, but remembering it? What if the signal isn't meant to reach out, but to call us back? And so I ask you, have you heard it too? Because if you have, then you already know. This isn't a story, it's a countdown. What if the most dangerous truths aren't the ones we uncover, but the ones that start to recognize us the moment we look too closely? What if there's a point in every investigation where the act of seeking stops being innocent and becomes permission? I've been trying to understand what's happening to me, to the world around me, to time itself. But maybe that was my mistake. Maybe it never wanted to be understood. Maybe the signal wasn't a clue. Maybe it was a trap. And now I've gone too far to turn. There's a kind of silence that hurts your ears, a pressure behind your eyes, as if sound itself is pulled back like a tide, waiting to slam back in with something worse. That's what I felt the moment I touched the second shard. I told myself I wouldn't, that I'd leave it untouched, observe it from a distance. But it called to something deeper than curiosity. The first time it pulsed in my hand, my vision blurred, not like fainting, like refocusing, like the world had been blurry all along, and now, in one sharp, searing instant, I was seeing what had been there all along. Just beyond the spectrum. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat closed up, my muscles locked. All I could do was listen. The pulse wasn't a beat anymore. It was a voice, not with words, not language. It communicated in sensation, memories that weren't mine, images that hit with the emotional weight of trauma, but without context. I saw a forest burned to glass, then reversed, reborn, green, alive, and then burned again, in infinite loops. I saw the bones of machines twisted into the shapes of animals. I saw stars collapse into themselves like eyes winking shut. And through it all, one symbol repeated. The eye. The same etched geometry from the monolith, the shard, the visions. Always watching, not passive, observing. The days that followed are a blur. I lost track of time again, but not like before. This time it wasn't just me who shifted. Everything around me moved too. Streetlights changed positions. Hallways in my building seemed longer, rooms hummed. I marked my walls every morning, counting each day. But on the fifth day, the marks were gone, erased, as if someone or something was resetting me. But they missed something. A small cut on my thumb, one I got before all this started. It had begun to close, and then reopened, raw again, a loop. My body caught in a recursion while my mind desperately tried to stay aware. And then came the voices, not out loud, not audible, but felt inside. I'd be sitting still and suddenly overcome with the urge to leave, as if my body knew something I didn't. At first I resisted, then one day I didn't. I followed it, downstairs, out into the street, through an alley I'd never noticed before. It led to a fence, beyond it, a tunnel. No signs, no markings, no record on any map, but I knew. Somehow I knew. This was where the original signal had been born. Not the transmission I intercepted, the source, the origin. When I stepped inside, I thought the air would feel stale, cold. But it wasn't. It was warm, alive, as if the tunnel itself was breathing me in. My footsteps echoed in sync with the pulse, and the walls flickered faintly with that same iridescent shimmer I'd seen in the shard. As I moved deeper, I felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on my back, but when I turned, nothing, only silence, until it wasn't, until a sound, low, harmonic, began to rise. It didn't come from ahead, it came from within me. My chest vibrated, my teeth ached, the second shard in my pocket began to glow, then it cracked, just a hairline fracture. But it was enough. A sliver fell to the floor, and where it landed, the tunnel responded. The walls shifted, literally moved, like something was adjusting to my presence, like I had been recognized. That moment was when the fear truly set in, not because I felt unsafe, but because I felt wanted, like I belonged there, like this place had been waiting for me. That was the emotional fracture, the realization that I wasn't fighting to escape a horror, I was coming home to it. I turned and ran. I don't remember how long I ran. Time bent again. One moment I was inside, the next I was back in my apartment, out of breath, bleeding from my nose, shards missing from my coat, but the pulse, still there, stronger. And in that moment I knew the truth. The signal was never out there, not entirely. It was inside me now, imprinted, integrated. Every breath, every heartbeat, every thought now echoed in tune with something ancient and unrelenting. I've spent nights since trying to silence it. Soundproof rooms, meditation, isolation tanks. Nothing works. It's part of me. And here's what terrifies me most. I think I'm starting to understand it. I think it's not trying to hurt me. It's trying to prepare me for something bigger, something vast, something coming. Or maybe it's already here, and the only ones who can see it are the ones it's marked. And I wonder, how many of us are already chosen? What if the thing you've been searching for your entire life wasn't lost at all? What if it was buried inside you, waiting for the right signal to wake it up? Not a memory, not a voice, but a command. A trigger embedded so deep in your DNA that even you wouldn't recognize it until it was too late. Have you ever questioned why certain sounds make your skin crawl? Or why some dreams feel more like warnings than fantasies? What if the signal was never meant to be understood, only obeyed? That question, it haunts me. Not because I know the answer, but because I think I've already responded to it, without even knowing I did. And now, I'm not sure what part of me still belongs to me. Ever since the second shard arrived, things have accelerated. It's not just dreams or glitches in perception anymore. It's full-body sensations. Heat running up my spine, light flashes behind my eyelids even when my eyes are open, like signals are being received not through ears or eyes, but directly into the nervous system. At first I thought I was hallucinating, sleep deprivation, psychological breakdown. But when I recorded my vitals, there were undeniable shifts. Heart rate increases perfectly timed with the pulses, oxygen levels dropping during episodes, alpha waves in my brain peaking exactly when the shard vibrated, yes, vibrated, audibly, faintly, in tones that aren't even on the musical scale. And then, there was the moment everything changed. I stood at my desk staring at both shards under a spectrometer, and the hum shifted. Not louder, not faster, just deeper, resonant, like something was aligning between them and me. For the first time, I didn't feel like the observer. I felt like the receiver. I realized I wasn't studying the signal. I was being studied. Every moment I thought I was cataloging phenomena. It was cataloging me, my reactions, my biology, my thoughts. I could feel it, like eyes just beyond the veil. And I knew then, I wasn't the one in control of this timeline anymore. I started seeing patterns in everything. The cracks in the wall, the rhythm of my breathing, the way light bent through the window at exactly 3:33 a.m. Nothing was random, and when I traced the symbols I'd written in those strange trances, I noticed something. The same sequence of numbers repeated over and over, 4 to 2, 0 to 9. At first I thought it was a date, then a coordinate, but when I checked both, nothing matched. Until I overlaid it onto the harmonic frequency of the shards, then it clicked. 4 to 2, 0 to 9 wasn't a place, it was a tone, a key, a harmonic gate. And the moment I played that exact frequency on my computer, just a tone generator, nothing more, something shifted in the air. My walls rippled, the air itself thickened, and for half a second I swear I wasn't in my room anymore. It wasn't a dream. I didn't fall asleep. I was standing, awake, alert, and yet for that brief moment I was somewhere else. The room looked like mine, but wrong. Too symmetrical, too perfect. The shadows didn't fall correctly. The windows opened onto darkness that had depth, not just blackness, but a textured void. And in that space, I felt it. I wasn't alone. I was being watched, not with hostility, not even curiosity, but with expectation. like something waiting for me to say the next word in a sentence it had started 1,000 years ago. I came back gasping, soaked in sweat, the tone still echoing faintly from the speakers. But the shards had changed again. One of them had split, fractured clean down the middle, not broken, opened, and inside it, embedded so delicately that it hadn't been visible before, was a third layer, a shape not native to metal, organic, like a fossil, but warm, alive. And when I touched it, the pulse surged straight through my chest, dropping me to my knees. I lay there for hours, shaking, crying, lost. Because in that moment I finally understood. I hadn't found the signal. It had found me. It had waited, buried, dormant, encoded not in stone or wire or device, but in blood. And all it needed was one match, one human resonance. And it would begin again. So here's what keeps me up now. Not the fear of being taken, but the fear that I've already been changed, that I'm no longer entirely who I was, that something else is awake inside me. And maybe it's not malicious, maybe it's not evil, maybe it's just different. But if it is, what happens when it no longer needs me? What if I'm not the host anymore? What if I'm the seed? What if the final truth isn't something you find out there, but something that's been echoing inside you your whole life? Quiet, constant, waiting. A vibration so familiar you mistake it for silence, until the moment it aligns, and you realize every step, every choice, every anomaly has been part of a single perfect signal pulling you toward something inevitable. That was the moment I stopped searching for answers and started listening to the hum behind the world. Because that hum, it's not outside, it's in us. It's always been. I woke up with the sunrise bleeding orange through my windows, but something about the light felt wrong, like the color wasn't coming from the sun at all, but from me. The walls had shifted again, subtle at first, shadows too sharp, angles too smooth, as if the room were trying to imitate itself but couldn't quite get it right. I moved slowly. My joints ached, not from sleep but from recalibration, like my body had been adjusted overnight, retuned to a frequency I hadn't agreed to. The third shard pulsed quietly on my desk, now completely fused to the first two, forming a single seamless object, matte black and humming, low and steady. I reached for it, and my fingers didn't even need to touch it before I felt the warmth rise into my skin. The dreams had stopped, not because the connection was broken, but because it was no longer necessary. I didn't need sleep to receive messages anymore. They came while I was awake, in the static between radio stations, in the flicker of a street lamp at 3:11 a.m., in the rhythm of my own heartbeat. I'd become the receiver, the transmitter, both. I began speaking words I didn't understand and writing sequences that, when translated through spectrographic analysis, matched gamma bursts recorded in deep space. One of them aligned perfectly with a pulse received from a distant quadrant 27 years ago, the one they thought was a quasar anomaly. It wasn't. It was a response. Everything I believed about time collapsed. The signal wasn't linear. It looped, wove through dimensions like a serpent through sand, stitching moments together that were never meant to touch. I began to see fragments of my own life, childhood memories, faces I'd forgotten, places I'd never visited, merging and overlaying with images I knew weren't mine. I was becoming porous, a vessel not just for communication, but for convergence. And then, it happened. The tone hit at exactly 4:29 a.m., not from the shard, not from any device, from the earth. A low vibration that passed through my floorboards, my bones, my mind. I felt my eyes water and my knees buckle, not from fear, but from recognition. Like hearing your name whispered by a voice you've never met but somehow remember. That tone wasn't a warning, it was a welcome, a signal of arrival or return. I looked outside, and everything was still. No wind, no birds. The air hung like crystal, frozen in time. The world wasn't ending, it was sinking, aligning to something greater, something older than memory. And in that perfect silence, I finally understood. This wasn't just a story, it was a broadcast. A call to awaken the part of us we've been taught to ignore. The irrational, the inexplicable. The part that dreams of stars we've never seen and languages we've never learned but speak in sleep. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if I'm still entirely human. I don't know if this frequency, this tremor code will rewrite me completely. But I know I'm not afraid anymore, because maybe this isn't an invasion. Maybe it's a reunion, a return to something we've been for centuries trying to forget. And maybe the reason we're afraid of the dark isn't because of what's out there, but because of what's calling us home through it. So if you've heard even a fragment of this, if something inside you stirred while listening, don't ignore it, don't silence it, trace it, map it, follow the hum behind your world, because the tremor code is real, and it's waking us all one by one. If this resonated with you, if something inside you moved tonight, do like and subscribe to Podpulse House. There's more to uncover. More that's waiting to be found, beneath the static, beyond the veil, inside the signal. And I'll leave you with this. Sometimes the answers we're looking for are the ones we're born with, and rediscovering them is the bravest thing we'll ever do. Stay tuned for more mysterious stories. If you don't mind me asking, do you prefer long-form videos where we really dive deep into the mystery, or shorter, more focused ones you can explore quickly? I'd truly love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share in the comments.